Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In today's video, I'll be giving you your top 7 pro tips and tricks for dominating ARB matches in War Thunder. I'll go over the things that I've learned over 7+ years of playing this game that have helped me not only be good at this game, but dominate, especially in the air. That said, let's get into it. For tip number 1, climb high, especially early in the match, but not to the point where you stall or lose a ton of speed. Know your plane's rate of climb. The most successful pilots in this game, and for that matter in real life, use altitude to their advantage. Back when rate of climb was more relevant, the pilot who was higher in the sky had a substantial and oftentimes long-lasting advantage over those flying lower. This is the same in War Thunder. Regardless of if you read somewhere that your plane is good for boom and zoom, higher altitudes will give nearly everyone an advantage. Simply put, when attacking someone below you, you'll be able to engage at will and gain speed/energy in the process. If you're attacking a plane above you, such as a bomber for example, you are not only losing speed and energy, but you will be exposing yourself to being picked off out of the sky by enemy fighters who are faster than you or the gunners of the bomber that you're trying to take out. Be smart and try to open engagements only when you will be at an energy advantage over your opponent. And for tip number 2, keep your head on a swivel. Constantly, and I mean constantly, check around your plane, whether it's in front of you, above you, below you, or anywhere in between. Just because you think you see the entire enemy team does not mean that you actually do. There can be easy targets just below you or deadly threats that are out of your sight. Exercise extreme situational awareness always. To this point, do not use acrobatic smoke unless you're already in a fight or unless you're so far away from everyone that no one can see. A situationally aware person can see the smoke 10 times easier than they can see the plane that's using it. And for tip number 3, teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. There is no quicker way to a win than with your team, and no quicker way to a loss than if you decide to ignore them. Like it or not, War Thunder is a team-oriented game, and while some people can lift their team on their back and win, it almost never happens that way. I cannot tell you how many matches I've had in this game in nearly every game mode where I put up 3 to 5 times the score of the next closest person on my team and on the enemy team as well, and we still lose. It happens more often than it probably should, and if it's not me putting up that type of game, it could be someone else. In any case, the point is that if you do not work with your team, you'll find yourself losing more of your matches than not. It's why people who play with squadrons, no matter how average they are, have better win percentages than lone wolves. If you see a teammate in need of help and you're able to get there in time, help him or her. You'll probably get a kill, and there's a good chance they'll pay back the favor. And now for tip number 4. If possible, prioritize enemies that are at the lowest speed. This generally occurs when a careless person goes into a vertical and reaches an apex before either stalling or coming out of it just prior to a stall, and when a person is in a hard turn, typically during a dogfight. You should prioritize these people first and foremost, unless a larger danger to you or your team is present and immediately beatable. Additionally, if you catch someone at a turn, they will typically have the top of their plane facing you, which is the largest profile of their plane possible, making it substantially easier for you to hit them than if you were to chase them down, for example. For tip number 5, learn your plane's strengths and weaknesses and mold your strategy around them. Fighters can typically be divided into 2 categories when not considering secondary payload: boom and zoom fighters and turning fighters. English, Japanese, and a good amount of Russian planes tend to be turning fighters, whereas German planes, and to a point American, Italian, and Swedish planes, are the faster, harder hitting boom and zoom type of planes. If using a turning plane, you can more easily win in a dogfight, whereas if you're in a heavier boom and zoom plane, you'll want to avoid dogfights against the lighter planes meant more for turning. For example, if at top tier and using an F4 Phantom, regardless of the variant, you'll likely be facing much more agile MiGs. As a result, it is good practice to stay up high and drop down on your enemies and attempt to destroy them in one fell swoop. If this does not work, simply outrun your enemy to the best of your abilities. If you are in a MiG, or any turning fighter for that matter, you'll want to drop down in much the same way, except you can stick around and try to destroy your enemy in the furball, so to speak, as they will likely be incapable of out-turning you. The same scenario goes for Focke-Wulf 190s versus Spitfires, a P-51 Mustang versus a Zero, a BF-109 versus your random Russian fighter, and so on. The list goes on. Additionally, if you insist on taking secondary armaments, such as bombs or rockets to a battle, but your plane can hardly carry any and they hurt your performance substantially more than they are worth, think twice about bringing them to battle. If you are slowed down substantially due to your payload, you will be an easier target and will miss out on opportunities to take out planes and afterwards destroy lightly armored ground units with your remaining ammunition. And for tip number 6, use everything on your plane, whether it's flaps, air brakes, flares, or even simply extending your landing gear to slow you down if you're not at a high speed at which it will break. Flaps, depending on your speed, due to the fact that they will break at certain speeds depending on your plane, can radically improve your handling and can also save you if your control surfaces have been damaged. There have been numerous times where the regular control surfaces on my wings were destroyed in combat, and by using flaps to control the altitude of my plane, I was able to survive for much longer and, in some cases, make it back to base where I would have otherwise crashed. This might not always be successful, as it oftentimes relies on having your engines being able to carry you back as well, but will give you a fighting chance to survive, repair, and win the match. For air brakes, and even using your landing gear tactically, could allow you to slow down very quickly and have your enemies overshoot you and fly right by your plane, which will then allow you to get back on their tail and hopefully hit with an accurate follow-up shot, whether via guns or missile. Flares are much the same, and though most people in top BRs are aware of this, using your flares will help you stay alive, especially right now where everyone is so missile happy. And for number 7, mid-match loadout management. This one is real simple. If you feel that the match has changed to the point where your initial loadout is no longer relevant, simply land back at the base, reload and repair, and then J out of your plane once you reset on the airfield. I have a video illustrating this linked below, but in short, you will not lose your plane and you will be able to repick your loadout. This is especially useful if you're flying a fighter bomber and you're the only plane left on your team, so you can pick a better dogfighting armament to help you survive. Or conversely, pick more bombs if there are fewer enemy fighters in the sky. Yes, this is true, and again, I do have that video linked below. And now for a bonus tip. Bet you didn't see this coming. Because this tip only applies to upper tier jets, I couldn't really include it as a regular tip. This said, do not exclusively use missiles. If you are within gun range, use your guns if you have the opportunity. Shells shot from guns or cannons travel far faster than missiles, and typically also go more or less where you want. Don't be that guy who uses missiles all the time, especially when you're tailing someone close up. Wean yourself off of them, or at least learn how to use cannons at top tier. Also, I know this video was basically geared towards fighters, attackers, fighter bombers, and other similar planes. This is because these are the majority of planes in any given match of ARRB. Additionally, the role that they play, and how they play it, is substantially more dynamic than bombers. Now, I'm not saying that bombers are easy or they only do one thing, but I felt that there are more tips and tricks that are less obvious for fighters rather than bombers. This said, I hope that if you are primarily a bomber pilot watching this, you are still able to benefit. I'll be releasing a tips and tricks videos for you specifically, so stay tuned, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you've not done so already. Either way, thanks so much for watching everyone, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care everyone.